Welcome, Profit Boss, to episode 78 of Profit Boss Radio. I'm Hillary Hendershot, your host. Profit Boss Radio is your weekly wealth mastermind. Profit Boss is also a community and a movement for women who are ready to take control of their money, break the glass ceiling, and give ourselves permission to finally have enough. Want the secrets of wealth to be yours? This is the place. I'm Hillary Hendershot. I'm a certified financial planner running a leading advisory firm for women, and I'm sharing with you real stories from real life and real women who are making it happen. Forget Wall Street. Let's do this, ladies. I have with me Rachel, my co-host, my new co-host, introduced 2 episodes ago. And before we get into today's interview, she and I thought we would stop in, pop by, and do a little Q&A. So Rachel has kindly gathered the questions from you in the Profit Boss Radio audience from the Profit Boss private Facebook group. If you'd like to join us there, please go to hillaryhendershot.com/Profit Boss. That redirects you to a private Facebook group. Just request entrance. We promise if you have a profile photo and you're not weird and you're not a member of 199 other groups, we will let you in. It's not a spammy group. It's a private, useful, valuable group, and you can ask your questions there. Rachel, we've been having some lively discussion in the Profit Boss Facebook group today. What questions do you have?
Well, we have a question that came in from Lorena. And actually, I will just add as well, if you haven't been into the Profit Boss Facebook group recently, we did just upload our new art for the group, and that also debuted our new podcast art and our new logo, and it's all very exciting. So you should go run over there and check it out anyways, even if you're already a member.
The rebrand is complete.
The rebrand. Yes. It's so fun. We had such a great time doing it.
And if you haven't noticed yet, look in your podcast player. You can see the new Profit Boss logo. Instead of my face, you see Profit Boss and that super cool, sexy silhouette of that powerful woman who's our mascot, our new mascot.
Right. That's right.
It's
Get ready
Rachel.
for all this. I think it's more you. All right, let's get to the questions. We have Lorena, and her question is a little bit of a long one, so bear with me. I think what I'll do is she has a bunch of questions within one, so I'll ask each of those separately. So here we go. I am considering relocating for a job. I have a mortgage of $178,000 and my monthly payments are $1,469. I rent an above the garage apartment for $700. If I was to relocate, what do you think will be the more financially responsible thing to do? Rent my house and the apartment? Continue to only rent the apartment and just keep my house closed? Or sell my house?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a popular question. So she's basically got her house sectioned off. She's got a tenant in the above garage apartment, and she's living in the other part of it right now. And her question is, I have this asset. Should I keep it in place? And my opinion is that if you're sure you're leaving the city and you're not going back, that you should not become a landlord by default. That being a landlord is actually a job and it puts you at risk for all kinds of liability. And if you're not even going to be in the city, then you have to hire a property manager, or maybe, some people get family to do it. And I think this is all sort of done under the supposition that the money is invested and it's going to be growing. And the truth is, and I kind of talk about this on the podcast a lot, is that the expected returns from the stock market are actually, if you get the right portfolio, are actually a lot higher than the expected returns from a real estate investment, even taking rent into consideration. I get this question all the time. So I think you should sell it and put the proceeds in the market, assuming that it's earmarked for retirement. Again, if there's any aspect of your personal life that I haven't considered, because you didn't tell me anything that you didn't tell me, for example, if that money has a 5-year time horizon or something like that, then that probably wouldn't be an appropriate strategy for you. But assuming it's earmarked for financial freedom, then I think you should get out of your real estate investment holdings that are not in the city you're going to be living in.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Not that I am a financial expert by any means, but I do actually have a home here in Arizona that I rent out. And I lived in another country when I first rented it out, and it was a huge nightmare. I had to move back, evict my tenant, hire a new property manager. It was just a huge burden. And the only reason I keep it is because I don't know if I'm going to be permanently back in Arizona or what my plans are. So I keep my house thinking that my whole family lives here and I'll eventually move back here and live in that house, but who knows? Lorena did actually have some additional information. She said that the market is a seller's market around my area, and I could profit almost $40,000 if I was to sell it. If I rent it out, I'm afraid renters will destroy the house. Would a property manager be worth it? Yes, I say yes, 100% yes. That's Rachel. Here's Lorena. Do I have to pay taxes if I rent it out? I could rent it for $1,500 per month based on rental properties around my area on Zillow. What would a financially savvy woman do? Hillary, what would our silhouette do?
So I've kind of already answered the question. She's really working around the details and nuances of, should I keep and rent part of it out, or should I just sell it, and should I hire a property manager? And I do think property managers are probably the right way to go if you are going to choose consciously to be a landlord. But again, I just don't think that you should do that. And I think that selling it, recouping your investment, putting your proceeds in a diversified, low cost index fund portfolio, like the ones I've described on episode, I think 22 of Profit Boss Radio was about index funds. You can go back and listen, or really just go to my website. It would be the best most responsible thing for you to do for a woman who's growing wealth. That is a perfect segue of events.
Amen, sister. All right. Lorena did have one other question as well. This doesn't have to do with the real estate, though. But she says, on another note, regarding my retirement fund, I just opened a Roth IRA with $500, and I have a rollover IRA with $48,000. Do you recommend for me to also open an SEP IRA? I am an independent contractor. Or should I just contribute to the other accounts?
So that is a question I actually cannot answer, but I can tell you how to get it answered. So the reason she's asking that is because the max you can contribute to either a Roth or a Roth IRA in 2017 is $5,500 if you're under the age of 50, $6,500 if you're over the age of 50. And then the contribution allowances for SEP, or self-employment pension. Excuse me, it's not that's so funny. I just said that. It's actually simplified employee pension, not self-employment pension. Everyone thinks it stands for self-employment. It does not. The contribution limits for SEPs are a lot bigger. That's actually 25% of company profit. And profit doesn't get determined until after the turn of the year. So your tax person will look at your company books and say, hey, you had $100,000 of profit in your business this year, so you can actually put $25,000 into your SEP. And that comes off taxable income. So it's a great thing to do, is maximize allowable contributions to any tax deferred accounts. And I hope that helps, so that the real answer is wait till January 30th or whenever you turn in your QuickBooks reports to your accountant and bookkeeper, and then see what they say.
Thanks, Hillary. Anyone else who has questions, go to the Profit Boss Facebook group, and just remember to hashtag your questions with hashtag Ask Hillary.
Perfect. And I went ahead and went to my own iTunes page, and actually the episode on index funds is not episode 22, it's episode 26. So just check out episode 26 if you like, and go from there. Build yourself the right portfolio. So thanks, Rachel, for being here. And now I'm going to introduce today's guest. She's someone I've been wanting to have on the show for a while, and it's kind of complex how we get from her specialty, which is weight, food, and body image issues, to money. Basically, I met Dr. Nina Savell-Rocklin in San Diego at a business owner, a marketing event, and she introduced herself as a psychoanalyst. I'll be completely honest. I thought that was kind of a huckster profession. I don't know. There must be some title out there that's like psychoanalyst that sounds to me like it's not credible. I really honestly couldn't tell you why I thought the title psychoanalyst was kind of like, I don't want to offend anybody, but anyway, I thought it was someone who didn't have any training. Turns out, no, she has like 8 or 10 years of schooling, equivalent of a medical degree. And she says to me that her specialty is in weight, food, and body image issues. And right away, it's clear to me that a lot of people at this event know who she is. So this isn't an area of content that I've paid attention to. So I really didn't know who she was. Turns out she's a really well-known podcaster, a really well-known author. And basically her hypothesis, and, don't let me step on what she's about to say, but her assertion is that if you have body image, eating, or food, or weight issues, that it's actually, she says, that it's not what you're eating, it's what's eating at you. And I have done a lot of thinking about the similarities between money and food in people's lives. You'll find that often people who are overeaters are also overspenders. And I think about things like this. So, if you're an Epicurean, you might like to really indulge and spend on food and drink. And those seem to go hand in hand. And so I started talking to her about these similarities, and she said, absolutely. Actually, I think she said she wrote her master's thesis on money and food. And, she said a lot of the things that I speak to, like she happened to select the niche of body weight and food issues, but she easily could have selected the niche of money issues. So, I feel that it's high on the spectrum of things that I talk about on the show, but I definitely feel like Dr. Nina's voice is a contribution to the show because she can go much further in depth on this topic than I can. So let me introduce her and we'll get right to the interview. Dr. Nina Savell Rocklin is a psychoanalyst, author, and internationally recognized expert in weight, food, and body image issues. She's been featured in the Los Angeles Times, Prevention, Real Simple, Redbook, The Huffington Post, and many other publications. And she's a frequent guest expert at Summit's podcasts, radios, and events. In addition to her clinical practice, she makes an award-winning blog called Make Peace with Food, and her video series and her book, both called Food for Thought, is an Amazon bestseller. Her radio show, The Dr. Nina Show, it says premieres, but it's actually on LA Talk Radio now. For more information, go to winthedietwar.com. Without further ado, please welcome Dr. Nina Savell Rocklin. Dr. Nina, welcome to Profit Boss Radio.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad that we finally got to connect. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time. So let's just start with the obvious question. Does our relationship with food have similarities to our relationship with money? Like, why would I be having a conversation about money with an expert in eating psychology?
Well, and that is a good question. But the important thing to keep in mind is that it's not what you're doing with either food or money, it's why you're doing it. So I often tell my patients who struggle with food that the problem is not what they're eating, it's what's eating at them. And the same thing is true with money. So if you have a hard time saving, or if you find it difficult to part with a single penny, it is for a reason. And that reason may elude you at first. It's unconscious, right? It's out of awareness, but it's not out of operation.
And why would that be true? So why would there be similarities in our relationship to food and money? Why is that so complex?
Well, I find that lots of people do the same things with food that they do with money. For example, I once treated a bulimic patient, and for those who don't know what bulimia is, it means that you binge on a lot of food and then you like way more than normal, and then you purge it in various ways, exercise, laxatives, or other things. So I was helping this woman with bulimia, and then I found out that she also went on shopping binges every week. She spent a ton of money on all kinds of things, and then she'd return it the next day. So the pattern was she ate something or bought something and then got rid of it. And she didn't understand any of her behavior at first, but we came to realize that for her, bulimia, both food and financial, served the purpose of staying deprived, which for her was familiar. She grew up in a kind of a poor family, and she never got to have the stuff she wanted because there was no money. So consciously, she wanted to be successful and happy, and she was very financially successful, actually. But unconsciously, she was recreating her past because it was more familiar. And on some level, and this is the psychological piece, she didn't believe she deserved more. So when we worked through that part of it, and she came to feel deserving of abundance, her bulimia stopped, both with food and with money. And that's what happens when you figure out the underlying reason and process it, everything changes.
That is absolutely fascinating. And I want to come back to that. But first, I really want people to understand your unique perspective on this subject. I mean, I imagine some people listening probably have some book learning or some past experience with eating disorders, or kind of the how that's commonly understood. I mean, can you speak to how your perspective on food psychology is so unique?
Well, I think that what makes it unique is that I look at the behavior as a symptom of the problem, or even a solution to the problem, not as the problem. You know, a lot of people in my private practice or in my online program, they label themselves as food addicts, or they talk about what they're doing with food in a very negative way, and a way that makes them feel bad about themselves. And that's why, I wrote my book, Food for Thought, because I really wanted to set the record straight and people see the behavior as the problem, whether it's binging and purging, restricting, overspending, not being able to spend anything, being paralyzed with money, all of that. The problem is not what they're doing or not doing. That is a solution to the problem. And so the underlying problem is different for everyone. And the thing is, we have brains, but we also have minds. And whatever is going on with food or money, it's a way of expressing, enacting, or symbolizing something internal. And this, I think maybe an example would be helpful here, because it's hard to conceptualize what I'm saying without, sort of a true real life example. And I had a patient named Jenna, which is not her real name, but that's what I'm calling her. And she really thought that she was a food addict. And in fact, she came in one day and she said, "Hey, Dr. Nina, I'm addicted to ice cream and I can prove it."
Sorry.
I was like, oh, I don't believe in food addiction, maybe eating addiction, but not food addiction. And I said, okay, well, I'm all ears, prove it. And so she told me that the night before she was watching TV after work. She'd had a good day at work and everything was fine. She was just chilling out. And as she put it, suddenly Ben and Jerry's was calling her name. She's like, calling my name. She said nothing was wrong. Nothing was bothering her. Clearly, she wasn't emotional eating. She was addicted to Chunky Monkey ice cream. So I asked her, well, what were you watching on TV right before ice cream started calling your name? And she said, Charmed, her favorite show. She was happy. It's her favorite show. Again, she just could not understand why ice cream was calling her name when everything was fine. And then I asked what the episode was about. And she said, oh, it's the one where the devil comes down and the sisters start fighting and everything gets really nasty and contentious. And that's when she stopped and had her Oprah aha moment, because she realized in that moment, watching the episode of Charmed had activated some thoughts and emotions about her own sisters. They had a really bad relationship. And before those thoughts and feelings could reach her conscious awareness, she went right to ice cream for comfort and distraction. So if we had focused on ice cream and willpower and this is what you do when ice cream calls your name, we would never have gotten to what was really going on. The real problem was her difficulty facing her relationship with her sisters and her difficulty tolerating painful feelings. So Jenna did this, with ice cream, but other people do a similar thing with money. We've all heard of retail therapy, right? Sometimes things become so suddenly you just got to go shopping. You just need some new shoes or whatever. It could be a way of resolving something that is more internal and out of your awareness.
So would it be your opinion then, if someone is doing something in their financial life that they wish they weren't doing, it seems like out of their control, then it's actually a deeper seated problem. It's actually not a problem with money per se. It's a problem with their deeper psychology.
Exactly. I think both food and money are very symbolic. So if we think about food first, as human beings, our first experience of love and connection is bound up with the experience of being fed. When a baby is fed, and you have a baby, so a baby is held in the parent's arms and, feeling just safe and protected and loved while being fed. So on a very primal level, eating becomes fused with that early sense of connection and that bond of love. So we don't consciously think of it that way, but it's part of our psyche. That's why eating for comfort really means having the experience of being comforted by another person. And in that way, food represents people. It's the symbolic part. So think about the way we describe relationships, fulfilling, satisfying. Those are the same words we use about food. But people can be unpredictable, unreliable, and unavailable, whereas food is predictable, reliable, and available. So if you're turning to food, you're turning away from something else. Same with money. Money is not just money. Money represents something, and it's different for all of us. So money can represent power. It can represent love. It can even be identity. For some people, having money makes them feel special. Not having money makes them feel inadequate and helpless. For others, having money makes them feel guilty. And that's why, they may consciously want abundance. They want to have money, but unconsciously there are some negative things associated with it. So with both food and money, we're very influenced by our parents and our upbringing and our society. And so it's important to look at what were the messages that you got about both in order to heal and change.
Okay, so this is fascinating. How did you come upon this knowledge?
Well, I got a doctorate in I have a doctorate in psychology, and I'd seen a lot of people, and I think that what drew me to being a psychoanalyst is this idea of the unconscious. A lot of our current kind of therapy, because of our don't even get me on a tangent on insurance, but they don't want to pay for long-term therapy. So everything becomes about short-term, which is about treat the symptom as the problem. And I really thought, wait a minute, that's not going to work, because you've got to know where the problem came from in order to truly change it. Otherwise, it's just a Band-Aid. It's like, I look at it like it's like pulling a weed and thinking you're going to get rid of it. I mean, you don't have to be a gardener to know that if you pull a weed, it's going to grow back. And so you've got to get to that proverbial root, which is a perfect analogy for a psychoanalyst, because just like the unconscious is out of our awareness, sort of we're in the dark, so is a weed underground. We can't see it, but we know it's there because it's growing the weed. And the same thing with my philosophy of treatment. We don't know what's going on there in the dirt, but something's happening that's creating these weeds. And the weed may be money, the weed may be food, but it comes from one root.
So is there any way to predict, for example, whether someone's going, I'm thinking about someone I know who attends meetings at Overeaters Anonymous. Okay. I don't know of a Spenders Anonymous or a group that's like, the AA of money problems. But is there any way to predict whether someone's going to have an issue with, say, gambling or eating or spending, or do they all sort of go hand in hand?
Yes, I will say, and I've been very public about this, I'm not a fan of OA or 12-step programs when it comes to food, because they really make food the problem and the identity. And I don't want someone to walk in and say, hi, I'm so-and-so and I'm a binge eater. That doesn't help you. What you want to say is, hi, I'm so-and-so and I am struggling. I am perfectly imperfect, struggling with food for some reason. And I may feel as if I'm helpless, but something is going on. This is my solution to the problem. So to answer, that was my little anti-OA rant. But to answer your question, yeah, I think that there's a problem. There's a bigger problem, and it's in our society. Our society is anti-emotions and anti-feelings. Somehow we believe that we're weak if we feel our feelings and strong if we don't, which completely is backwards. I mean, I think it takes a lot of strength to feel painful, difficult feelings. So in our culture and in our families, we get these messages like, oh, if you're angry, that's not good. You need an anger management class, or you need to stop that. Or if you're sad, oh, you're depressed, you need to take a pill. You're anxious, hey, there's a pill for that too. Even if you're happy, oh, you're maybe a little too happy, a little bipolar. I mean, we have this judgment on feelings in our country. So in our world, actually.
In our world, yeah, we all want to be flatline.
Yeah, and so what do we do when we have these feelings? Because we are human, and feelings are reactions to situations. They are not character flaws. When we have these feelings and we don't know what to do with them, we don't know how to process them, we don't know how to attend to them, how to comfort ourselves with words, or even acknowledge that we are feeling something because it is too scary, we tend to go to food, to alcohol, to working too much, to gambling, to what have you. So I do think that people who have difficulty, and it's a lot of people, difficulty naming and attending to their emotional worlds, are vulnerable to using something to relieve their distress.
It's almost like a tool to sort of fix the underlying problem. Well, I think this is going to be both relieving and frustrating to some people who, until they heard this conversation, thought that they had a problem with money, but it turns out maybe it's not, money at all. So, for example, if someone's listening to this and she is just what we might call an under earner, so she is educated and has skills, but maybe struggles to earn a consistent income or earn an income that's commensurate with probably her fair market value in the workplace, where might she look? Like what clues could we give that person to say, it's not actually, a problem with your earning ability. You're actually maybe living out something from the past.
Yes. And it is as individuals are. I mean, the reasons why people do what they do are as individual as they are. But off the top of my head, as I was telling you earlier about the woman with financial bulimia who was successful and yet didn't feel like she deserved it, she was recreating her past. She didn't feel as if she was supposed to have a lot of things or supposed to be happy. And so for her, and maybe for this mythical person, there might be some prohibitions against feeling too good, quote unquote, too good. A lot of people are afraid to be too happy because they have the sense that as if they're too happy, something's going to be taken away from them. Like they're going to be punished for being too happy, or, something bad is going to follow, or somehow you're supposed to, there's nobility in suffering and struggling, or rich people are, bad and selfish. There are all these meanings that people have based on their upbringing that they bring to the table. So you may consciously think there's nothing wrong with being rich. Rich is good. And might be simultaneously another part of you that says, oh no, people who are rich are selfish and bad, and that I can't be that. And so recognizing what are your both the thoughts that you're consciously aware of and the thoughts that you are not aware of, but that are driving your behavior, is the key.
And that really leads me to something that I have heard you say, and you certainly alluded to in this conversation, but that is that everything really comes down to your relationship with yourself. Can you say a little bit about that? I mean, I think I'm trying to tie in for people that we relate to money like it's a physical object that's outside of us. And so I'm trying to make this connection for people that money is a construct of the human mind, and how your relationship with yourself impacts your relationship with money, or in the case of your expertise, food. But can you talk about the importance of that relationship to self?
Yes. Well, our relationship to self is the basis of all our relationships. When we are kind, supportive, compassionate with ourselves, we can respond to ourselves with words instead of by taking action, whether that action is spending, eating, starving, whatever. When you're mean to yourself, when you ignore, deride, chastise yourself constantly, people who do that, who treat you badly, are just going to seem like people who really know you, and you're more likely to tolerate bad treatment from other people. Our relationship with ourselves just reflects what we get out in the world. So if you're mean to yourself, you often can't take in anything nice and loving from other people. If you have a toxic relationship to yourself, other people who are nice to you, that's not going to stick. If you're mean to yourself, you can use food or money just to get away from your internal critic. And so it's really, really vital to have a loving, compassionate stance with yourself. And I hear people all the time who treat other people so in a lovely way. They're kind, they're generous, they're understanding. But when it comes to themselves, they attack themselves when they really need support and understanding.
So if someone's listening and they really feel like their money issues might be more emotional or psychological than they knew, where can they start? What actions can they take to improve, do you think?
Well, I'm a fan of being reflective instead of reactive. So the first thing to do is reflect, to take a look at what that money issue is doing for them instead of judging it. Be curious, not critical, because if you're critical and you say, "Oh, I can't believe I do this. It's terrible. I have no willpower," or whatever, whether you're talking about food or money, then you don't get anywhere. You just feel worse. But by saying, what, how is this helping? Not just hurting. Then you can find new ways of relating to yourself and to money. So they might want to ask themselves, where did they learn this way of relating to money? What is familiar about it? What is it doing for them? How is it a friend? Because all of this behavior is a frenemy. It is a friend in that it does something for you. It distracts you, it comforts you, it numbs you out, it enacts something, it's doing something for you, but it's an enemy in that it's also hurting you. So how is it a friend? And one vital question that people can ask is this: if all your money issues were gone, what would you be worried about in your life? And sometimes people say things like, "Oh, I wouldn't be worried about anything. I'd be happy. No money issues." That sounds great. But if you reflect deeper, it could be that money and food issues distract you from a conflict about, say, having more, about feeling lonely or dissatisfied, or fears about loss or other things. So I find that behavior with food and money is a symptom of deeper internal issues, as you were saying, and that when you identify and work through those underlying conflicts, you don't need these behaviors with food, with money, with anything to either cope with or distract from or give expression to what's going on inside.
So, and it's just so powerful, I think, for people. And, I share a lot on this show about how I had an overspending problem and sort of cured myself, quote unquote, because the things just got so bad that I was just not willing to do that anymore. But in my case, for example, so you're saying when I was overspending, that was actually doing something for me, that was actually providing a distraction, as it were, or
would an example help?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Well, first of all, a lot of people who binge on either food or money describe this kind of zone, like this. They describe shopping binges and food binges the same way. I just got in this zone, So I was in this zone. You're not feeling anything, or you're feeling some kind of elation or something. So I was treating someone named Marina, again, not using anyone's real name. And she used to say, she didn't know where her money went. So no matter how much she earned, she never had enough. And she again earned a really good salary, but she spent it all. And so she would just scrape by from one paycheck to the next, even though those paychecks were substantial. And her relationship to food also echoed this behavior. So she would binge and then she would restrict. And so Marina used both food and money to enact her fears about having a lot and being satisfied. So if you're finding yourself without enough funds or on the financial edge, again, you could have mixed feelings about abundance. People fear, as I was saying before, people fear having too much or being too happy because they're afraid that having enough or having a lot will lead to loss. And so, or other people connect hardship with sort of humility, and prosperity is connected with arrogance. So recognizing what your ideas are about abundance and what your ideas are about having enough, and in addition to, what is it that you're going on this shopping binge to avoid or distract from or whatever. Another example actually is a patient who collected clocks. And she had more clocks than she had wall space. And she just could not stop collecting clocks. She also couldn't stop eating to the point of being super, super full. So for her,
clocks,
wall clocks, not just clocks, wall clocks.
This reminds me of my grandmother. I used to go into her house and the whole house would go tick tock, tick tock. So why was she collecting clocks?
For her, the core issue was loneliness, which loneliness can be experienced as emptiness and then symbolically filled by food or by things such as clocks. Taking up space in your house, just as food takes up space in your stomach. So taking up space on the wall for her. And by the way, the opposite, like restricting food or keeping your living space really austere and empty, can express an underlying sort of sense of deprivation or isolation. It's just the other side of the same coin. So it's really understanding symbolically, what is going on and why.
This is amazing. I think this is going to be, to use a funny term, real food for thought for people.
That's not a funny term. That's the name of my book.
So if people want to find out more well, actually, let me ask you one question first. So I think there are ways that we think of as a society that food, we have this whole term called eating disorders or food disorders, but you don't call them that, do you?
No, I call them eating disorders just because that's what they're called. But I'm always saying that I would like to have a different term, because what it is, it's a way of coping. It's a coping disorder.
It's a coping disorder.
It's a coping disorder.
And so, in your opinion, do you think let's just call them money disorders, could money disorders be treated the same way eating disorders are?
Another very good question, Hillary. Yes. And my answer is absolutely. Both could be treated the same, because, again, whatever's going on with food and money is a symptom of a deeper problem. It's not the problem. And so for both of them, you have to treat them the same way. It's whatever it is that's causing distress, whatever that frenemy is, you need to figure out what the behavior is doing for you and find new ways of addressing that. And when you do that, everything changes and you really heal your relationship to food, to money, to anything. You make peace with food, with money, with anything by making peace with yourself.
Beautiful. And so if you're listening and you're doing something with money again and again and again, despite your best intentions, maybe the place for you is a form of therapy. Yes?
Absolutely. You need another person to help you, because you cannot have an objective view of your subjective experience, right? You need to have another person, and that in itself can cause conflict. Like, I don't want to need help, or I don't want to feel like I'm broken and going to someone to be fixed. And that's why I tell people that therapy it's not about you being broken and you come to me to be fixed. It's about the two of us putting our heads together and figuring out what's going on and why. It's coming to a deeper understanding of yourself in the service of change.
Beautiful. Dr. Anita, we're going to put a link to your book, Food for Thought, in the show notes for this episode, but where can people find you if they want to learn more?
They can find me at winthedietwar.com, where I have links to lots of resources. I currently have a giveaway called, How to Get Through the Night Without Binging. that a lot of people like. You can get that for free and get on my list, and I'll keep sending you more food for thought.
More food for thought. Beautiful. Thanks for your time. We really enjoyed having you on Profit Boss Radio.
Thanks so much for having me.